Welcome to Pro Talks, the Pulse of Dentistry, the first episode of our podcast. My name is Andreas Utz, and together with my colleague and friend, George Raeber, it's our pleasure to host this series of inspirational conversations. In this podcast, we engage with remarkable personalities in dentistry. We discover their personal development journeys. We talk about their pivotal moments in their career that helped shape them who they are today. We talk about clinical innovation, we talk about technology, and of course, we talk about the future of dentistry as well. For this first episode, I'm very pleased and very honored to have and to welcome a very special guest, Professor Dr. Daniel Buser. Danny, thanks for being with us. Thanks and welcome for this first episode. It's a special honor to have you today. I think, Danny, you literally need no introduction or very little introduction. Everybody knows you in implant dentistry, but you've been for 19 years. You've been the dean and the head professor of the oral surgery department at the University of Bern. And in that time, you managed the university to always be one of the top-ranked universities in dentistry, in implant dentistry. You created more than 400 publications, which is amazing, with your team. You are a key researcher in the field of biomaterials, regenerative therapy, implant surfaces, and many more things. You've been the president for a lot of very important associations, the ITI, the EAO, and just to name a few, many others. And of course, for many people, you've been very influential by teaching, by educating them, and just creating what implant dentistry is actually today. You've been a true pioneer in this. So very happy to have you. Welcome, Dani.
That's my pleasure. And thank you for this very kind introduction.
Danny, what we try to do is also to create some habits in this podcast. And the first habit is we would like to ask every guest to introduce himself or herself in 1 minute. So who's Danny Buser in 1 minute?
Yeah, I'm a dentist with a surgical training and have had the pleasure to get into the field of implant dentistry early on in the mid-80s. Professor Schröder, my mentor, told me it is a complete open field, and he was absolutely right. He gave me a lot of guidance. And with my team, we had a fantastic 35 years of research and clinical applications. I'm a very happy person.
It's amazing, Donny. 35 years of implantology. You go really back to the starting points. When you look back and in hindsight, what is one element that you think you're most proud of that actually you could contribute to the field?
Yeah, Professor Schröder was absolutely right. So I had my most important discussion with him. That was in April '85. Because he invited me for lunch, and I knew now the door is opening, because I knew he's the key person. When he has been dean of the medical faculty, rector of the University of Bern, ITI president, and he had a great network and was a great person. And that's exactly what he said. He said you should go into the academic world and stay at university. And then when I said after 1 week, yes, it's okay, then he opened all doors for me, you see. And very important was for sure then when you go into a academic career in Bern and many other places, you need to have at least a 1 year stay at university abroad. And we will talk about that for sure. I'm a convinced team player. So I thought I want to go to the States. And I want to team up with somebody I know very well. This was H.P. Weber. And H.P. Weber just started to do a 1 year student education at Harvard to get an American license. So I said, let's go to Harvard. And then Schröder said, then let's invite the boss of HP to come to to Basel. It was in 1988, the first ITI Congress in Basel. And so Ray Williams came, and after that he said, you can come tomorrow. I said, no, I want to come next year. And this was probably one of the really very important moves to go to Harvard. We did 4 animal studies there. 1 I brought from Bern, was on surfaces, and 3 on tissue integration. And these studies had a huge impact because we knew much more about tissue integration of implants. That was the beginning. And then the second one was for sure GBR. First surgery in 1988 before I left for Harvard. And that, of course, became then the most important bone augmentation technique in the world. Yeah.
Did you ever consider not to go into academia? You said before it took you 1 week to take the decision, and I think it was a very important decision to take. What would have been the alternative?
You know what he told me? See, he said you should go into academia and you're going to have a fantastic career. However, you also need to know the negative aspects of an academic career. He said, first of all, you have to work a lot. Second, you will earn much less money than all your colleagues from your class because you cannot buy a Mercedes, you cannot buy a house in the next 10, 15 years. When you are a professor, then it will equalize. And so on. Thirdly, he said, you're going to be surrounded very quickly by jealousy. This is something you need to be able to stand. And last but not least, he said, are you married? I said, yes. Then he said, okay, then now you go back home, talk to your wife if she supports that. If she does not support, don't do it. Otherwise, you get divorced. And that's why I had a 1 week break in between. So I talked with my wife thoroughly about it. And she said at the end, let's go for it. And then I told him yes. I never considered that because I saw the potential. I was, of course, I was very enthusiastic about implants. We just had about 1 year of experience. And then Schröder made it happen, yes.
So I think that's beautiful. I mean, this seems to be a very pivotal moment in your career. And it seems you had a very strong mentor, which I think is beautiful for everyone to have. I think you're very fortunate to have a mentor. Yeah. You mentioned you are believing in team play. Yeah. And there's maybe one thing that not everybody knows about you, but you've been really an excellent handball player up to the first national league with the BSV Bern and playing the first league. And in 1 year, you even managed to win the championship with the team, which was a great achievement. What is it what you learned from this sports career for your professional career? What is it what you transferred from it?
I think in team sports, you learn a lot about team play, that you can achieve much more when you have a good teamwork with all the other players, in particular in handball. See, these are 6 players and the goalkeeper, and they have all different roles. And I frequently go and see handball still, and of course I watch it on TV. Germany is very good and so on. And you can only be successful if you have 6 team players who work with each other, because you cannot have a Messi and you get a world champion. It's impossible. That is different in soccer probably. And therefore there I learned a lot. And of course in sports, we have had a very famous federal counselor in Switzerland, Adolf Ogi, who always said in sports, you learn to win, but you also learn to lose. So when you lose, that means when you have, let's say, a negative experience, you learn to stand up very quickly and just go ahead. So I think I learned a lot from that one. So when I got a professorship in Bern and had a chance to build up a team, also to build up a clinic, I told all my senior surgeons, my clinic will be like a handball team. So one is the goalkeeper, one is, radiologist, stomatologist, I'm the implant specialist, and so on. And we all have a responsibility. And when you do a good job, you get all the applause comes to you, not to me, because I'm not a pyramid, you see. When there is a problem, I want to know it so we can solve it together. But you see, and that's how we established the team. And as you said before, we have been very successful in producing a lot of publications, but you also mentioned at the end, with your team. My team achieved that, not me, myself. So you need to have excellent team workers or people in your team, dedicated and open communication, you see, and that is really most important. It's the same in the business, I'm sure. Same here at Straumann. You need to have ambitious people, but team players.
Yes, ambitious people, you need a good team. It's amazing if you win and you need to celebrate it, but then it's also if you have negative experiences and you make mistakes every day, it's exactly what you said. What is it what you learn from it, and how is a mistake making you stronger? It's exactly the same. I agree.
You see, I have had, again, I mentioned many times now, Professor Schröder, Andreas Schröder was such a great mentor. I remember I had once a surgery, patient was sent to me from Paris. I didn't see the patient before, so I opened up and realized, I cannot place an implant. There's no bone here, you see. It was not carefully examined before. And so when I thought, my goodness, she comes from Paris, she will be devastated. So I was thinking, what I'm doing now, that was before we had GBR. So then after 10 minutes, I told the lady, look, I'm so sorry to tell you, but I cannot place an implant here. It will have no future. It will have a complication in 2-3 years the latest. So I was very, let's say, depressed. So in the evening, Schröder came and said, how is everything? Oh, shitty day. And so I said, what happened? I said, congratulations, that the guts to say no. It's so important sometimes to say no, because that was his advice. Or when you do a mistake, everybody makes mistakes, but learn from them, never do the same mistake twice. That was his advice. Exactly. He was a great guy.
You're still active at the BSV Bern, and I think what is really impressing me, Dan, is that you also invest a lot of your personal energy and time to help others.
Yeah.
And you're also doing a lot of charity work. You're very active in this. What is it what you do there, and why do you do this?
Yeah, in 1999, 2000, the Bernese team went into the second league. And of course, we were all depressed about that one. I watched it from the sideline. And I heard then from many people who saw it's about time that somebody's doing something. Then I met a guy who told me the same, and I said, you see, we should stop to say we should. We have to do it, you see. So let's engage and bring it back up. So that's how I got involved in that one. And then I learned, I established like a supporters club. And I learned a lot from that supporters club. Later on, I also became member of Rotary for the same reason. I learned this gives me a chance to get outside of the dental or medical bubble. Because you are always in a bubble with these professors and so on. And they all talk about medical and dental stuff and so on. You get into the supporters club or Rotary club, and then you have their bankers, you have finance guy, I don't know, business leaders, entrepreneurs, and that was a huge improvement to go outside that bubble. That was the first motivation. The second one is a motivation to give a payback. Because I'm engaged very much in sports and not, of course, also for the handball team, but actually with the supporters club, but also in a foundation to help kids to get into sports. And the kids are 5 to 10 years old. The foundation is called Sport for Kids. And I have a strong belief, you see, in particular these days, you see that these kids are surrounded by iPhones and iPads and I don't know what. They have to get into sports to learn to interact in a team with their same age group and so on. They learn so much. And that's not because they should become handball players. We do that they go into, I don't know, floorball or football or volleyball, whatever. So this foundation is completely open. Sport for kids. And this is such a pleasure to see. When I have, let's say, a bad day, I go to one of these meetings where you see these 55 to 10-year-old kids running around and they're so joyful.
Enjoying the physical moment.
Fabulous. That's how I do it.
Then you've always been very busy.
Yeah.
And you're still today. You still enjoy it. I know it. Where do you get your energy from?
That's a good point. I would say the following. You see, when you are in a profession like I was, chairman of a department, you have a lot of meetings, and I don't know, you get tired to attend. Yeah? Once a month you have a board meeting of the dental school, you have a board meeting, or you have a meeting of the faculty. That's getting boring after 10, 15, 20 years. So when you get into retirement, if you do a good job, you have to prepare well. And second, then you make a decision, I'm just doing the stuff I love to do. Huh? That's most important. Huh? And in this sports area, I'm also very engaged in the medical campus in Bern. It's called Insel Campus Bern. You see, that's a payback. But in the sports field, you primarily work with young people. So in sport, the kids, and then the trainees of these kids are 25, 30 years old. In the clinic, I'm still working. I'm working with 6 other dentists. I'm working the least. I'm the senior consultant. I do my 2 surgeries a week. But the other dentists are all between 35 and 45. It's a complete different generation, all digital. And I think that gives a lot of energy, that you have this collaboration between different age groups, other generations. So what I learned as a student, I learned some basics, but everything we did is not used anymore. We did amalgam fillings, we did prosthesis, full dentures. We didn't do anything in implants. We didn't do anything of fixed orthodontics. Of course, all the progress in crown and bridge, that is unbelievable. So this is actually a very interesting field. And of course, now we have the whole digital workflow that influenced our lives. And we learned so much about the biology. I would say I have a very interesting life, although I work 60% about.
Okay, super.
Yeah, that sounds very rewarding, and I fully understand. So this touch with the different generations that can make a huge difference to life. I brought the book, and I'm sure you know this.
Yes,
so when I started with Straumann 20 years ago, I got this on my as a welcome present, and people told me, read this. You're one of the authors, and it's basically came out 88, and I think it still holds true to a very big degree. So the basics of implantology are in there. And you have been a very important pioneer of implantology. So you've been the one that actually co-developed the first two-piece tissue-level implant. Then we started the endeavor with the bone-level implant. Andreas, myself were in that project team together with you. And you have been part of the IXL development team, the latest generation of implants that came out. Now, when you look back at dental implantology, what are some of the defining moments? And I know you're very good at also remembering precise dates and places where actually action, or decisions were made. What are two or three important moments for you in the development of implantology?
When I agreed to go for an academic career, you see, and that was in 84, 85. Then Schröder came about a month later and said, at that time we were not using our first names, Dr. Buser, we go into the next development, so second generation. And this is from Suter, myself, and you are the only surgeons who get the chance. For 6 months, so use the chance. And then I told them already, you see, at that time already the decision was made that the implant should not be, at that time, TPS coated all the way up. That was reduced already, I think, in 83. Huge discussion among ITI members at that time to reduce it. It was actually the German group around Kreckler said, we have to get rid of the roughness. So then they came, and I told them we need implants for crowns and not for the bar type overdenture. So we need an implant that goes out like this. So the first prototype I got from Sutter was in Bern at University, was a one-piece tulip shaped with an abutment for cementation. I told them, no, Franz, it has to be two-piece. Come back with a connection. And he came back with the Morse taper connection a month later. And that was then where we moved. That was for sure a very important moment, because that gave us a chance to go into posterior single tooth replacement, aesthetics, because we started to do aesthetic implant dentistry, I would say, late 80s. But although we have figured out, it's not so ideal with a 3 mm machine neck and so on. But that was very important. Then the next one, as I said before already, we learned a lot among all these years in the tissue biology. So at that time, Bronnemark implants and Straumann tissue-level implants showed a lot of bone saucerization. 2 to 3 millimeters bone remodeling. I don't like to call it a bone loss because it's a tissue reaction to the implants. And then you said that should be minimized. And then some friends in the United States came up with this platform switching idea around 2000. That's where then we asked Straumann we should get an implant that has a platform switching concept. And this is then where then the bone level implants.
Point of the bone level project.
Yeah, and there, of course, we then improved a lot in the aesthetic field. Although this implant was rough all the way up, and we were very concerned about that could cause a lot of infections. And therefore, 10 years later, when we had the paper of Dirks, that was confirmed that actually, and this is a big problem today, that we have a high prevalence of peri-implantitis in the field, that this roughness all the way up is a disadvantage. So I remember very well that I had many discussions also then with you, with Marco Cadola, that actually we go to the second, third, fourth generation, which is then, first one was TLX, then TLC. This is like you have a marriage between the tissue level and the bone level implant. Very logical. So actually, we have now these hybrid implants, and they will give us a chance to reduce the prevalence of infections. And that's the very exciting news we have these days for all our colleagues. When we started with TLX 4 years ago, TLC 2 years ago, and our experience in patients is extremely positive.
So it's 3 very beautiful, I would say, defining moments.
Yeah.
First of all, the birth of the tissue level connection, then the birth of platform shift and bone level, and now also the next generation of hybrid implants, as you call it.
Yeah.
So it's really spanning over 30 years of implantology.
I strongly believe today that we should stop to use this differentiation, bone level and tissue level. It's completely wrong, because we have to say we have hybrid implants because they have less risk for infections, and you can use them for both prosthetic options. Mm-hmm. And then we can stop to say bone level, tissue level. And actually that's where we are moving, and it will take some time to convince our peers, but they will see all the benefits from that one. And Straumann, of course, has excellent products and will benefit from that one.
I can very much relate to this. So I remember very nicely a tough internal conversation where it was about, should we make bone level prosthetic matching also tissue level implants? And of course there was a big fear that there could be confusion. But now that it's possible, I believe that this is a strength of the system, and you were also showing this clinically.
I remember when BLX was introduced in Vienna, first presentation with Ophir, and I saw him in the hotel, and he told me, "Oh, Danny, now you have to use my implant," and so on. And I said, "Oh, you have to convince me, come to Bern." Then you came with him to Bern, and he gave me all these arguments with this better primary stability and so on. And I told him, "Look, Ophir, I will never use that implant. But when you produce one with a machine neck, you can call it TLX." Mm-hmm. And then I think that's the strength of Straumann, that actually, you brought it back home to Basel. And then 2 months later, I got the information.
We're doing it, yes.
We do it. And I think that was then the starting point. And I told them, Cadola, you see, that's just the beginning. The next one is a TLT, we called it. But now it's TLC because it got a different connection. And that's also something I did not mention before. I'm intrigued by the quality of this torque fit connection. You have to see Morse taper, then Syn Octa, and then with NNC another connection, and now torque fit. And this is based on the technological progress manufacturing is doing. That's why your production plant is in the area where all the watches are produced, because they learn how to do this high precision manufacturing. That's why you need a company who has this quality. And I'm intrigued to see now how this connection really helps us in daily practice.
Maybe one more question before we might look also a little bit how this will evolve in the future. I'm very interested in your view on this one. You mentioned a couple of times the ITI as well, because there was, the industry and the pioneers in industry. There was, universities like Bern and Freiburg at that time. But the ITI also played a key role. How do you see the contribution of the ITI?
ITI is today the leading association in the field of implant education, but also implant research support. So ITI is not doing research, but ITI fellows and related, let's say, departments are doing the research, and the foundation supports. The ITI Foundation, by the way, you see, it was established because of me. Because when I wanted to go to Harvard, I told Professor Schröder, we need research money. And at that time, ITI as an association had about 100,000 Swiss francs in the bank account. Then he said, we have to talk to Fritz Straumann. Come to my home when I have my birthday, 70th birthday. That was 1988 in April. Fritz will come for a visit, 2:00 Friday. So I went to his house and Fritz Straumann came. And then before that, I met him only on distance, never one-to-one. And so he was very friendly. And then we had first a conversation about I don't know what. And then Andre said, tell Fritz why you're here. Then I told Fritz, look, I'm going to Harvard and we are doing 3 animal studies there. And we need more research support. So we thought we should establish a sort of ITI foundation. And he said, that's very easy. Let's do it. He said. So because we know how to do that from AO Foundation, which just will have a different approach with the IP rights, he said, and so on. But you will hear from Rudy Mark, that was CEO at that time, and then actually Rudy Mark came to Bern a month later, and the ITI Foundation was established. And then at the ITI annual meeting, the two announced that we just established a foundation for research support. It was at that time research foundation. And Fritz Straumann, they made an agreement, and Fritz Straumann gave, because he said, all the money actually that would have been for Andre Schröder, I put in a bank account, and that's the starting capital, 1 million Swiss franc. And then the first 500,000 they gave to me to do the studies.
For the preclinical studies.
For the studies at Harvard. ITI became then, of course, after that, not only a research supporting foundation, also an implant education foundation. That move was made in 1992. They asked me to be the education delegate in the board. And then I think that was then refined about 2 or 3 times. And then a big important was a meeting in 2002 in Zurich, where then the opening of the membership was decided to go from ITI members to ITI fellows in research and education, and membership for GPs, so without educational activities, and that's allowed then the growth. And today we have, I think, 26,000. And I'm strongly convinced that Straumann's success without ITI would have never been like this, but vice versa. When you look at it, when you mentioned that Bern is so good, Bern was then top 50. Bern is today top 10 university. ITI is number 1. Straumann is number 1. So it's again teamwork, you see. Different roles, but excellent collaboration. 1 and 1 and 1 gives 5, you see. It's very simple. Simple approach.
Danny, let's start look a little bit ahead, how this evolves. And, the first thing I'm interested in is, you are famous for very clear and scientific-based protocols. I think that's what people admire you, because they know you do repeatedly what you are good at, what is scientific based, and this is how you bring patient after patient to success. Still, I saw you always evolving your protocol. Now, recently, as an example, you enjoy more working digital, as you already mentioned. Started to do guided surgery, immediate implant placement at one point. So where do you learn from, and what makes you adapt your and let's say develop your protocols?
When I give my lectures, I always say, what are the objectives of therapy? The primary objectives are successful outcomes with long-term stability. That means you serve your patient. It's not a treatment to maximize my income, to maximize the patient's benefit. I'm going to get an income anyhow. So that's the primary objective. And then I would say around 2000, 25 years almost now, we figured out that our treatment protocols are very demanding. You see, multiple surgeries, lots of swellings, pain, I don't know what, long healing periods at that time. So we said these are the secondary objectives. That means that we try to improve the technique, but these modified protocols should not, of course, jeopardize the primary objectives. That means the progress is done in small steps, very carefully. I always call them fine-tuning of our concepts, learning from studies how the tissue biology is, and then you adapt. So when we had this first discussion on immediate implants, then we have seen tons of complications. And we said, before we start to do that, we have to learn where are the risk factors, so how is the tissue reacting, and what are the selection criteria. ITI on this post-extraction place made a tremendous contribution to the field, probably the most important one, at 5 different consensus conferences, 2003, 8, 13, 18, and last year in Lisbon, and published always. And I would say after 13, I felt secure that we can start to do immediate implants. And now we are doing that with enthusiasm in 15% of my cases. Works extremely well. So what I tell them, you have to be open-minded, but it should be evidence-based. So when you are in private office, you should not try everything that is on the internet, because then your patients will be your victims. You rely on associations like ITI, because there are the research groups, they do that at universities, they document, they say this worked in our hands, ITI confirms that, then you can move. So you do it carefully, but always open-minded. Perfect example is digital. You see, we did our first digital cases 14 years ago. Team Yoda was my collaborator at that time. And of course, we did only a few cases. And of course, you made a lot of progress every 2 years with IDS in Cologne. And then we adapted that one. And today it's complete normality that we do when there is a benefit for the patient. We use digital technology, but not all the time. About 40% of my cases are digital now. And 60% I do brain-guided. So everything.
I think that's a good inroad to the next question I had. You said there's constant evolvement. What we hear very often, George, is, from different stakeholders, is that, let's say implant dentistry came a long way. A lot of things have been innovated. Implants are working now. The basics are established. It's an established technology. A lot of implants are alike and similar. And, there is no innovation possible anymore. No significant innovation possible anymore. How do you look at this statement, and how do you see this evolve?
I have shown for many years also a graph, you see, that showed the progress, and it, of course, in the 80s, 90s, very steep, and then it started to flatten out. So I would say probably 95% of the potential is now done. And we are doing the fine-tuning, and we do the fine-tuning to have least invasive protocols, whatever. However, I think our efforts, and that's ITI's efforts in the future, is that we have to spend more energy on education. We see tremendous complications. I tell you, in the last 4 weeks, I have seen 3 disaster cases I could never have managed. You see, one was a case with 4 missing teeth in the anterior maxilla, and 1 implant was drilled into the root of a canine, done by a certified maxillofacial surgeon. See? And so I think the challenge we have today is that we have to increase our efforts in education. And we have to tell the dentists, not every dentist must place implants. Complete nonsense, you see. In medical field, you see, I don't know, 5% are orthopedic surgeons and they do the hips and the knees and so on. And 2% are heart surgeons, they do the hearts and eye surgeons, whatever. I think the future, at least in Switzerland I see that, is that the market moves away from single practices, because the majority of our educated dentists are females and they don't work for 100%. They want to work 40, 60% and have a family as well. So therefore they go into group practices. And I think we have to work hard to really support that. That they say group practice of 4, 5, we have 7. One of them at least should be top educated in surgery. And this person serves the whole group with implant surgery. The others are doing all the other stuff, you see. And when we achieve that one, then the complication goes down. That includes the right selection of implants, hybrid implants, and so on. Because you need to have enough cases per year to develop the education, to the experience. Same in medical field. When discussion we have in the medical situation in Switzerland, too many hospitals. Many of the hospitals don't have enough cases to build up the top level of experience. So a very famous medical professional told me, you see, Danny, we have to tell the people when we reduce the number of hospitals in Switzerland, this increases the quality of medical treatment. That's the key. Same in our field. So reduce number of surgeons, they do more per case, and the quality goes up.
Talking about new settings in the future of dental practices. So dentistry runs in your family, and your daughter is also a dentist.
Yes.
What did you learn from her in the last couple of years?
Yeah, she wanted to become a medical doctor, and she worked actually in my department in the reception to earn some money. I always told my kids, you go earn your own money, so you learn how that works. And then after that one, also she came and said, I think I'm going to switch over to dentistry. I said, yeah, that's your decision.
Be my guest.
Yeah, don't tell anybody that I force you to do so. Actually, my postdocs told her, why don't you do dentistry? Because you love to work with your hands, whatever. And you have a father with such an influence. So then I told her, you see, that's great, but I give you John advice, don't go into the surgical field, because otherwise you never get out of my shadow. And you're always the daughter of Professor Buser. But you love to do prosthodontics, that could be actually great, because then we can continue to work together. So I would say half of my elderly patients are treated with her. She tells me what to do, actually. So we do the planning, we do the digital planning, she's doing everything, then we see the position, everything, we agree on it, and then she produces the surgical stand, so then I do. So I learned a lot from her in this digital field, as with the others, you see, with Manrike, Fonseca, Samir, and so on. And we treat a lot of friends of our family. She takes care of them, because many of them are actually elderly patients, you see, in the retirement age. And then when there is a tooth loss, then I get a new patient. She refers to me.
I see you really enjoy this, working with Manrike, also with Samia and with your daughter. So that really gives you energy, I realize. So we see a lot of, the next generation coming in, being male or female, very talented young people that wanting to become great implantologists. What is the advice you would give to these people?
I always tell them, go for a top education. That means to a postdoc program when you are really talented, and you might even have certain plans to go into educational field, apply for ITI scholarship, because that is a great program of ITI scholarship. I think they have now 35 centers around the globe. In my department, I had 32 ITI scholars. Many of them are good friends, and I know how they are doing family-wise, how many kids they have. I hear all the time. Fantastic. So there you learn then also to the ITI side, and that gives them an entrance into the ITI. many of these ITI scholars are today leading researchers. One was Simon Jensen, he's a full professor in Copenhagen, you see, and so on. And this is great. I just education and become active inside ITI. Go into the section leadership teams. And of course, there you normally walk up the ladder. You might become education delegate, or you are in charge of an ITI study club. And those who are really capable, then they move up very easily. And then they go to an international committee. And some of these ITI scholars today are now ITI president. See, that's how it is. So ITI is for sure a very important association for these top talented youngsters.
Okay. Maybe last question before we come to the closing questions. Also for George and myself, for the past 20 years, you've been a mentor. I mean, George, you mentioned it. We developed the bone level implant together, the first generation of the bone level at Straumann together, and you've been always a great supporter for us, Danny. Now we start a new endeavor with this podcast series. It's a bit an adventure. What advice would you give us for this podcast series?
Yeah, let me do the following. I'm going to listen to the next 3 or 4 podcasts and I give you a feedback.
Very good.
So I think we had a very good beginning. I think it's very important. I learned that podcasts are actually becoming very popular. I'm not driving a lot with my car, but I know from many people are driving long distances and they always are listening to podcasts. I think that's great. And I think that's a very nice tool to transport a message. The storytelling is so important in education. Like what we said, we're going to go now into this hybrid implant. This is a storytelling which is a no-brainer story because it's so logical, but we have to deliver the message and bring it to the recipients, you see, to the customers or to the colleagues in ITI. And I'm sure, you see, podcasts are very, very important. Actually, probably have much more value than a short post on Instagram. Very superficial. And many times it's complete garbage, you see. When I see stuff there, I can only scratch my head. What the heck are they doing? That's a disadvantage of this one. So we'll see.
And I have to say, I'm impressed how active you are on Instagram and what a strong profile you built throughout the last 5 years.
Yeah,
I've been following you as well, of course.
Yeah, I hope so. No, of course, you see, I think I have a very famous patient. I don't want to mention the name, you know it. And when I retired, I had a dinner with him, and then he told me, look, Danny, you have to leave your department because that will never work. You have to be so successful. You have to go into a private setting, and you have to continuing education. Deliver the message to the young generation. You have done enough with undergrad education, postgrad. Go for continuing education, because it's so valuable for this young generation, 30, 35-year-old generation. And that's what I'm doing. And that's why we established then during the pandemic also this Instagram account. And actually huge, we have some posts when it's a little bit emotional. We did one when Professor Schröder had the 20th death day. You see, he passed away 20 years ago, 2004. I think 48,000 were watching this. See, I gave him all the tribute. It's amazing. You see, it's very emotional. That's how we use social media. So, or with my daughter also. Yeah. Everybody wants to watch that. Exactly. So we're going to do a few during the Christmas break. I know already what we are doing. Okay. Upcoming meetings, master courses, our international symposium next November. You're going to love it. I just told Marcus the detailed program. He's very excited about it.
That's probably also a secret of life. Success is not happening by accident. There is a plan behind, right?
Absolutely. No. And you see my activity as surgeon, the agreement I have is we're going to make a decision always in September if I continue another year. I have no long-term plan. It all depends on my health situation. Yeah. You see, I spend a lot of time with my grandchildren now, do a lot of traveling with my wife. And every September we make a decision. Yes, of course, my dental assistant tells me we do another 5 years, and she tells me this every year now, every 5 years. She wants me to continue. I said, yeah, we'll see. So we go another year, and then probably another year, and then we have to stop the right time point. Also, don't overdo it. So, and you help me to make that decision. I want to have feedback, very open-minded.
Perfect. That brings us already to the last two questions,
Yes.
and it's going to be a routine. We're going to ask every guest the same questions. So the first one is, what's your vision of dentistry for in 10 years from now? What do you believe will dentistry look like, and what are the biggest changes?
Yeah, I think you cannot really generalize that. I think we have to differentiate between industrialized countries and industrializing countries. I mean, in Western Europe, in North America, we see, of course, this demographic change, and there geriatric dentists or geriodontology will play a very important role. Of course, the elderly population is much fitter than 30, 40 years ago, and they don't want to go into full dentures. So I think there the geriodontology will play a very important role. But when you go then to Southeast Asia, of course, India, the population is very young, so they're completely different. And there probably dentistry is not so well developed. So there is your great potential of Straumann, because there will be a tooth loss, because they first have to really learn for these huge youth populations how important home care is, and dental hygiene, whatever. So I think we have these two different groups. So digital will play an important role, but we will not have treatments by robots. Complete nonsense, you see.
You don't think so?
No, sure not. No, when I go and do a treatment, and I have always ITI scholars coming to assist me, you see, and we are running into an unexpected situation. No robot will ever handle that, you see. You need an experienced surgeon to handle the problem. They're always impressed how we solve the problems. Therefore, digital dentistry will help us tremendously to do a better job, but it will not replace the surgeon. I'm fully convinced.
That could already be an episode for next talk. I'm very much interested in that topic.
Yeah, okay, I will be important too, because in the treatment planning, when I see what you can do with your systems, you see, that means we say we would have a 3-unit bridge, and boom, you get by KI a proposal, and then you start to modify. Again, when you modify, say when the prosthodontist tells me that's where the implant should be from a prosthetic point of view, I tell him, look, that will not work from a biological point. We have to find a compromise. See, so you need both expertise, a team to optimize that, so the patient has an excellent chance for long-term success. That's how it is.
Last question. So when you could invite anyone, either living or not living anymore, to a evening-long fireside chat.
Oh my goodness.
Who would that be?
That's a tough question now. Let's see. Could be in the field of medical or dental, yeah. But could also be in the field of handball, actually. So probably I would, when in the field of handball, I was probably one of the top guys. Either the French superstar Karabatic or the Finnish superstar. You see, for a dinner, that would be fantastic. Yes, in the dental field or in the medical field, in the dental field, I know all of them I know of, in my field. You see, that is probably not so interesting, because I can have this dinner anyhow. But in the medical, why not a Nobel Prize winner in a field? But I cannot give you a name now. Yeah. That would be very tough questions, yeah.
But I'm sure the evening with Karabatic would be very enjoyable and very interesting. He's been also a living legend, right? So
absolutely.
I'm sure this would be a great evening.
Yeah, mate, that would be. These are people who have achieved tremendous achievements. Yeah.
With this, we are at the end. Danny, thanks a lot for the conversation.
I hope we are on time.
Inspirational insights that you provided to us. Thanks a lot for being with us, and to all our guests, thanks a lot for joining the first episode, and please look forward for many more episodes to come. You can see these episodes either on Apple Podcasts, you can see it on Spotify, you can also see it at Instagram, and we are all also interested in having an interaction with you. So whenever there are questions or comments you want to leave, so please feel free to do so. We're also happy to answer the questions and are happy to evolve and improve, and are always happy to have an interaction with you. Thanks a lot for joining our first episode. Thanks, George, for co-hosting it, and Danny, thanks a lot for being
That was
our
a
guest.
big pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Danny. Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Thank you.